So it turns out that Crystia Freeland has actually been under pressure by not only the Conservatives, but by mainstream media for mismanaging money. And it's not anything new. We're going to take a look at a bit of an older CTV, I want to say bombshell, but a CTV host is absolutely destroying Freeland on the affordability issues. This is really awesome, and I hope that you can stick around for the full video in case you haven't seen this from months ago when this did occur. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does really help grow the channel, as well as just a soft reminder that this is indeed the extra channel, so I may look familiar from other ones, but I would super appreciate it if you guys showed the same love for the other channels that you can with this one. And just another reminder as well that these are coming off the shelves very, very soon. This is the Wacko Trudeau Has to Go stickers, limited edition for a limited time only. They are linked down in the description or the pinned comment below. Without further ado, let's get into this absolute shit show of an interview. It's not even an interview, it's a cage match, and Freeland is on the losing end.
Crystia Freeland is the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Hi, Minister Freeland. Great pleasure to welcome you back to the studio here.
Great to be with you, Vashi.
Thank you for making the time. You said the changes to the Competition Act that your legislation today introduces and the meeting with grocery store CEOs this week will mean less sticker shock for Canadians at the grocery store. In tangible terms for Canadians watching right now, what does that mean?
What that means is we understand that the cost of living and prices of your groceries are a huge challenge for Canadians right now. And we know that those prices need to stabilize. And that is what we are working very hard.
This was months ago. Squat diddly has happened since this interview. So it's all just fugazi. It's all for a show to try and farm votes. But at the end of the day, when people have to vote, doesn't matter how purple your hair is, doesn't matter how many earrings or nose piercings you have, or how much you love Justin Trudeau and progressiveness and how many trees you actually hug, you're going to have to vote with your wallet one way or another. Continue to be broke. Continue for everyone to be broke. Or maybe let's take a chance on somebody else who can, fix the country and drive our economy in an upwards direction instead of these people.
To achieve.
What does stabilize mean? Can you be specific?
Sure. It means they need to stop going up.
So when Canadians go to the grocery store by Thanksgiving,
since this has gone up, or since this interview has been released, prices have gone up.
Which is the deadline that your government articulated exactly 1 week ago. Does that mean that the price of turkey will not be more than it was a month ago, or the price of chicken, or you know what I mean? Anything specific along those lines?
So Francois Philippe and I met with the CEOs of the main grocers on Monday, and we were very clear and very firm with them that they need to be part of a Team Canada effort to stabilize prices. But we also believe in a Team Canada effort. So, this is not about central planning. And so we said to them, over to you guys, come up with a plan. You have to come up with the plan fast because you have to get prices down. So I'm not going to preempt that work that each of the major grocers is doing. But I do want to say to you, Vashi, and to all Canadians who are listening, that we take this very seriously. We are hopeful that there can be a collaborative Team Canada approach, but all of the tools in the federal government's toolbox are available for us to use if we don't get adequate plans. I am confident we will.
Is it your view that
they promised that grocery prices would be stabilized and back to some form of normal by Thanksgiving of 2023? Obviously, and that's a weird freeze frame for Vashi. Obviously, that has not happened, right? Turkey prices did not come down for Thanksgiving, from what I remember. They did not come down for Christmas, and it's only gotten worse. People are afraid of going to buy groceries. People are lining up in record-setting numbers at food banks. Come on, government. Come on, Freeland. Wake the hell up.
Confident escalating food costs for Canadians. Your colleagues have said to me specifically, for example, this week, that the profits are undue that these grocers are making and that they're on the backs of Canadians. Do you share that view?
I would put it a little differently, Vashi. What I would say is, as a country, we have an obligation to each other, and we have a collective interest in getting prices to stabilize, in ensuring the cost of living is affordable, and we expect the grocers to play ball. What I will also say, and what was addressed in the bill that I tabled in the House of Commons today, is there are some structural challenges in many sectors in the Canadian economy, including the grocery sector. The fact is we just don't have enough competition, and that's because of the structure of Canadian competition law. You know, Canadian competition law is unusual in the world. It was designed with kind of a garrison mentality, a sense that we had to let our big companies bulk up to protect ourselves as a country. Canada is now a big, strong country, a big, strong economy, and we can afford more competition. In fact, we need more competition. And that is the medium-term structural change which is going to get prices down, keep them down.
We do need more competition. We need more free market competition. Get the government the hell out of the way, less red tape, less bureaucracy, and let the market do what it does best. Compete for the free market. It's not a free market if the government is overly involved or even involved in general. These people are sadistic. They're trying to manipulate everything, and they're literally tanking it. Or one could even argue, fucking it up.
That realization, though, that there isn't enough competition in the grocery industry, for example, is one that the Competition Bureau arrived at a number of months ago in June when it produced a report. The realization that prices are, the inflation of food prices is at a higher rate than overall inflation has been the case for a number of months. In fact, in September of last year, StatsCan said that the increase in food prices was the biggest since 1981. When Canadians look at what your government is doing right now, do you understand how they would feel it is performative in nature and late to the game?
So you started with the Competition Bureau, and I'm glad you did.
Does she say, let me be
because
clear?
The legislation that I tabled today is very much based on that work. This is a historic change in Canadian competition law. It is not something that can or should be done lightly. You have to do it carefully. You have to do it after a lot of thought and working with people who really understand and are thoughtful about competition in the Canadian economy. So, you know, it's a big deal what we did today, and it is going to have long-term consequences for the Canadian economy, which are going to be good for Canadians, for Canadian consumers. Do I understand why Canadians are frustrated? For sure. This is a really tough time for Canadians. This summer, I traveled to all 10 provinces of Canada. I went from coast to coast to coast.
On her bicycle,
because
right?
I wanted to hear directly from Canadians what they were experiencing. And I wanted to give a lot of people across the country a chance to tell me what they were feeling and what they wanted the government to be doing. And I heard two things. I heard real long-term optimism and love for Canada, like a deep conviction that I heard from so many different people in so many different places that Canada is the best country in the world, and I totally share that. I also heard real frustration and real anxiety, and people really, really challenged with the cost of living, people challenged with high prices, people challenged with high interest rates, people concerned about the future, concerned about climate change, concerned about how does Canada respond to these big issues. And that is what our government has come into this parliamentary session totally determined to do. And that's what you saw in this legislation. You saw long-term answers. The GST on purpose-built rental,
which you first promised
deal.
in 2015. With great respect, I take your point on what you came to realize this summer and what you heard this summer. But you can't sincerely mean that you just started to hear that in the summer. There have been price in issues that Canadians have dealt with, cost of living issues that Canadians dealt with for months upon months upon months, the interest rates as well. For months, I also heard you say, we are going to do targeted measures. That's what we feel is the appropriate response. We don't feel we can do anything more than that. And now all of a sudden, the government can intervene to lower grocery store prices, which Canadians have been dealing with for well over a year. Can you understand how some Canadians might feel it's disingenuous and more of a response to sinking poll numbers than to the realities they face in their lives?
So I would say, Vashi, actually, you're comparing apples and oranges there, because
Not at all.
targeted measures
Nail on the
provide
head.
direct financial support to Canadians. And that direct financial support did have to be targeted. We as a government did not believe, and we do not believe, it would be appropriate to send checks to every single Canadian to deal with the cost of living.
Sure, but
because
you could
we
have
know-
called the
we know
grocers to the
that would
table
have
a year ago.
We know that would have been a vicious cycle. And we have been working on and putting in place long-term and meaningful solutions that are helping people today. Early learning and childcare is a great example. Childcare fees down 50% already, going down to $10 a day, already down to $10 a day in 4 provinces.
I don't want to
That
take
is a
away
big
from
deal.
that. I'm
And
not
that
trying to
is
say you're doing
improving
nothing.
people's
That would be
lives.
disingenuous, right? I understand the Canada Child Benefit, the early childhood, the daycare thing has been huge for women my age especially. But that doesn't take away from the fact that people have been dealing with grocery store prices and food inflation and cost of living.
The daycare thing is almost a placebo effect. It works for some, but not for all. It's an interesting concept in theory, but it's been proven that, first of all, to make $10 a day childcare for across the whole country, you're talking like not 1, not 5 billions, but probably like $30 billion for a year or 2 or 3 years worth of that program existing. That's a lot of money. Instead of focusing on government programs like that, why not focus on making things actually affordable? Right? I'm not saying that that's not helping people. It absolutely is helping people, right? There's a lot of parents out there, a lot of either single parents or dual income parents that are having a hard time paying for anything, right? Paying for food for themselves, for their kid, for rent, for mortgages, paying for childcare so that they can go back to work, whatever the situation is. And yes, of course, childcare does help some people, but in a lot of places with 50,000 or 100,000 population, there's a multi-year, like we're talking 3 to 5 year wait list to get into a daycare that has these this approved government program. That's insane. That's absurd. You'd have to almost apply before you even have a kid so that by the time your kid is a year, 2 years, you can put them into the $10 a day childcare program. It's kind of misleading, and you don't hear them talking about that.
Cost of living burdens for a lot longer than just the summer. And again, can you understand how Canadians would feel as though you're addressing your unpopularity versus the actual problems that they face? Because you could have done it earlier. You could have called those grocery store CEOs a year ago.
I think that Canadians are quite rightly challenged with the cost of living. They are challenged with their mortgages. They are challenged with the rent. And my message to Canadians, our message with real legislation we tabled today, is we get it and we are acting. We're acting for today. We're acting for tomorrow. And we are going to continue rolling out more and more measures to support Canadians.
If you don't mind me, I know your time is limited, just a quick question on, or 2 quick questions on, under your purview of Deputy Prime Minister, and 2 international issues. I know President Zelensky is slated to come to Canada, and I want to get your view on that in a moment. But the other big issue is these escalating tensions with India. The opposition is asking your government to provide more information to the public about how you arrived at the conclusion that the evidence you've seen is credible. Does your government intend to do that?
You know, with the situation, I think it's really important for us to come back to first principles. And it's an incredibly serious situation, but, and this does not often happen in life or in political life, at its heart, it's actually really simple. This is about a Canadian who was killed on Canadian soil. This is about our government prioritizing, as every Canadian government should, the safety and security of every single Canadian. And this is about our government saying Canada is a rule of law country and the rule of law will be enforced. And that we can't allow ourselves as a country, and we will not allow ourselves as a government to be distracted from that fundamental truth at the heart of this indeed challenging situation.
Does that prohibit you from sharing any more information?
we take, for us, this is about law enforcement, and we take very seriously our obligations when it comes to law enforcement, and that includes an obligation not to prejudice an investigation that is ongoing.
Did you always intend to make this allegation public?
Again, our key principle here is it's about the rule of law in Canada. It's about a Canadian who was killed. It is about our government. Like, I'm not saying we're being heroes here. We're just doing our job. And our job is, if a Canadian, first of all, we don't want Canadians to be killed in Canada. We don't want people to be killed in Canada. And
Do you just want to provide incentives for people unaliving themselves, such as the MAID program? It's just a bunch of hypocrisy, man. I think people are just so fed up with the government and their gaslighting and their nonsense and their weird hypocritical behavior and words. And that's why you're seeing it in the polls. I mean, they're absolutely tanking. We can take a quick look at the polls for the last few people that are watching this late into the video, but Conservatives sitting at a 220 seat projection, Liberals at 64. I mean, it's a landslide victory all around. But I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. What are your thoughts on Freeland? What are your thoughts on her mismanaging the money of grocery prices going up despite her promise from months ago, months leading back into 2023, that they guaranteed prices would come down? And well, here we are. Prices have gone up, and there's no reason to believe the prices are going to go down anytime soon. But there's a lot of reasons to believe the prices are going to continue to go up. That's where we're going to end this video, folks. I'd like to encourage you guys to smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't yet already, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.